Let me formally welcome you all to our monthly 2020X Vision session, where our focus is always to bring you to speed on what's next in technology, B2B, and growth. And to set the context, there are three facts that I'd like to share before we begin. So, fact one, according to Gartner, by 2028, 90% of B2B buying will be AI agent intermediated. So, pushing over $15 trillion of B2B spend through AI agent exchanges. And procurement is not just being automated, it is being reprogrammed. Fact two, according to NESCOM's 2026 AI Adoption Index, with 87% actively using AI solutions. However, the vast majority of the companies remain in the middle stages of maturity, so which is categorized as enthusiast or expert rather than fully optimized evangelist stages. And that is despite a rapidly growing AI workforce in India and a forecast that is going to be a $315 billion technology industry. So the gap between investment and rewiring is still wide open. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. I'm going to add one more fact, which is fact three. So according to McKinsey, AI improves procurement efficiency by up to 25 to 40%, and 40% reduction in operational procurement costs, 30 to 50% faster sourcing cycles, and up to 90% reduction in manual invoice processing. But only for the organizations that have the data foundation to support it. And most do not. So here is what this session is actually about. Three questions, one per segment. The first segment is about why does procurement keep breaking in the same places, even better tools and more investment. Second segment that we are going to have is where does AI genuinely rewire the procurement cycle, and where does it just expose what was already broken. The third segment is when AI does work at the scale, who actually captures the value, the buyer, the seller, or the platform. So we are going to have answer to all these three, and not with certain predictions or with LLM, but with the people who have lived it. So today I have two industry leaders with me. I have Shiva and I have Dharmender. So Shiva has spent his career on the operator side of the table. He was the Circle CEO at Indus Towers and across 3 states. He was also CEO at Pace Digitech, and he has managed strategic sourcing at Tata Steel, supply chain at TCS and Airtel. DK has been a former CEO at Birlasoft and Mindsprint. He has built, transformed, and assessed technology organizations through every wave from ERP to AI. So welcome to both of you, Shiva and DK.
Oh, good evening, Vish.
Hello.
Good evening, DK. And good evening
Hi,
to
everyone.
all the live participants.
Thank you. So we are going to have two different because we have two speakers, so two different lenses, two different perspectives, but one conversation. And let me quickly begin with the icebreaker and a set of intro too. So as I shared, couple of context couple of sets in my introduction. There's another stat that I'm going to throw to all of you, which is 80% of global CPOs plan to deploy Gen AI in the next 3 years. And but as I shared, stats from NESCOM, only 13% of Indian enterprises have reached advanced AI maturity. So there's a huge gap. So and in many studies, half of the small and mid-size enterprises owners cite procurement and supply chain as their biggest operational challenge. Yet it remains one of the least invested functions, as we see from a technology perspective. So if I share this as an opening question to both of you, so tell us one real moment from your past uh, uh, where unintelligent or broken procurement cost your organization significantly, not just in price, but in time lost or relationships broken or a strategic opportunity missed. And if you want to talk about yourself, Meet, you are more than welcome to share um, a few snippets about your profile too. So Shiva, we can start with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think first of all, congratulations to you, Vish. This is one of the most sought after topic and quite hot topic at this point of time. Now, before I
Thank
get
you.
into my personal experience, I just wanted to set the context by saying that typically in the industry, sales function is considered as a hero function. If CEO wants to increase his profit by 10%, the first thought comes to him is how to increase the sales. Let's go and increase the sales. But it is increasing sales is not so easy. It has got multiple factors. You need to have time. You need to have effort. You need to have marketing spend, and most important is the market is ready to take that extra sales. But in contrary, so imagine the same achievement of 10% profit can be achieved much more simplistic way by just reducing 5 to 10% of the procurement cost. The procurement is it has to be a little bit of a smarter because it's own in-house function and vendors are in your control. The achieving 10% profit increase is much more easier in comparison to increasing sales by 10%. The impact of procurement has been understood by many CEOs now. That's how this renewed focus on the procurement when this AI is hitting at this point of our time. Coming back to the question which you asked me, Vish. So there is a classical procurement failures happens. One of the example I would like to take it from my previous organization. See, we were rolling out massive tower installations, and there is a very urgent procurement request came from the production department. No, typically what happens is when this set of a urgent requirement comes, we don't know the specification properly. The suppliers are not approved and standardized. We not know clearly what is the prices and price benchmarks. But when the procurement is asked to perform under pressure, so procurement manager what he does is he gets into his community and understands a little bit about the procurement. He interacts with the whatever the user they have, and then try to procure it as fast as possible. While the procurement is done, when the specifications are not properly engineered, the product which is getting deployed at the place eventually it fails, leading into a lot of questions to be unanswered. So that's the example which very frequently come across in our operations. Yeah, Vish.
Okay, thank you, Shiva. DK, over to you. What is your opinion?
No, thanks, Vish, and thanks, Shiva, for taking the lead here, and especially bringing in the point that sales and marketing is a hero function in most of the companies. And whenever we want to improve the growth, CEO will look towards them. And this is absolutely right. The experience that I also have had in my career. But another part that is often ignored is how the various systems are talking to each other. And if that integration is not there and that linkage between the different functions is not there, it could become a major challenge for the procurement function itself. It doesn't matter how many systems we have implemented, but if various systems are not talking to each other, it can become a challenge. I'll give one example, which I have seen it multiple times. One, that marketing plan given to the production that what should be the production for the month. But then how many times that plan changes during the month? Are systems going to cater to that change that is happening after every few days? And if that change happens and procurement is not able to do that, then it is often the procurement that is blamed for not fulfilling, rather than really looking at that my marketing or production plan had been changing unplanned. The second piece, the major gap that I've seen is the integration with the bill of material, especially in the companies where the bill of material is very large. For example, it is automobile manufacturing where the bill of material is very large. And if that is not designed well, reverse engineering that to what should be procured while keeping in mind what is already there in the inventory and what is the procurement already in the motion. That means what we have already ordered and when that gets delivered. If these three things are not talking to each other, it can go wrong. And if bill of material itself is wrong, then God saves us, because then there are many surprises that we can continue to get at the last minute when something is missing from the floor and the production is stopped. So those are some of the things that I've seen in my experience where that can cause a lot of challenge in the way procurement should work very, very effectively. And that would mean that while procurement is the one who has to fulfill, but at the same time, there are many other pieces in the organization that need to be well oiled and working together with each other in order to make the procurement very, very effective.
Absolutely. Well said, DK.
Thanks, DK. So yeah, there's two different environments and different perspective, but the same pattern. And that is not a coincidence, but it's something which the indices has been facing, certain challenges. And let us find out exactly where it keeps breaking in. So let me move to the segment 2, the unfinished revolution. So according to Deloitte's 2026 State of AI in the Enterprise Worker, access to AI rose 50% in 2025. And the number of companies moving AI from experiment to production is expected to double within 6 months. So the pace of deployment is accelerating. The process foundation is not keeping up. And there's a similar question that has come from Vijay Sabarwal, but I'll pick that question later on because we might be already covering some of the points that his question is about. So I'll pick that question after DK's response. But Shiva, we'll start with you. While I talked about this research, there's another research that shows most procurement failures begin at demand origination and specification, long before a supplier is in the picture. So you build procurement processes at various organizations. So what are those 2 or 3 points in the early procurement chain where small and mid-sized Indian enterprises lose the most value before a single rupee is spent?
Yeah, I think, let me draw my experience from Tata Steel as well as from the Airtel and Indus Towers. There are, while the procurement has 10 different types of masters, we will discuss that little later. There are 3-4 reasons the procurement actually very famously fails. See, the most important is if the organization is not designed their procurement processes, the first important visibility is the spend visibility. The visibility of the spend is extremely important. Typically, the classification of spends in between raw materials, consumables, and spares. The clarity of item level specifications is the next very important things. And the third one, what DK was mentioning about the bill of materials, is extremely important. Typically, what happens is, when these spend visibility is not there, you don't have the ability to segregate the spend and get the volume impact for you. Similarly, if you don't have the specifications, bill of material, you don't have the benchmarks for this item which you are going to procure, the should be cost. These are the elements typically the procurement always fails. Yeah, Vish.
Okay, so that's where the leak starts before the process even begins. So DK, let me go to you, and you have talked about the technology that was supposed to fix this and why it keeps repeating the same failure cycle. So you have seen, you have implemented ERP from the 1990s and watched every technology wave that followed. Each wave, MRP, ERP, cloud P2P, and now AI, which has arrived with a genuine promise and left behind a graveyard of unfinished transformation. So, what is the pattern that keeps repeating, and what would have to be architecturally different for AI to break that cycle?
Yeah. Uh, I think the good point that you talked, Vish, is what is the pattern that keeps repeating? Because if it is not repeating, then why it is a pattern? Okay, it is a pattern for the reason because people continue to make the same mistake again and again, and I'm seeing that for last 30 years. When we started building our own ERPs, and then we saw the flagship ERPs coming into the play, but the kind of failure that we have seen has a lot of similarity. That means that how it is disconnected from the process and from the data is the major cause of the challenge that we continue to see even till date. And I believe that if we don't set that right, we will continue to see the challenges in the future as well. So if I have to really look at, we need to clearly have that visibility as to what is the process that we have, what is the matrices that we are trying to work on. Okay, what is the outcome that we want from the system, and whether my systems are not broken below the surface that we are talking about. Many times you see that ERP is there, or we have multiple systems supporting in an organization. Now, it is not a measure for the success when we have the multiple systems. Or even if we have a monolithic system, that doesn't mean that it is able to resolve everything. We need to really map all these systems to the business process that we have, and what part of the business systems or the processes that are not getting mapped to any of the business system, that is where the hole is. And when there are such holes, when the process is broken or when the systems are broken, we start to get into the challenge. That is where the whole issue begins. I talked about the bill of material. Now, if the challenge is within the bill of material itself, there is no system that is going to help resolve the issue. With
Yeah.
AI, there is hope that AI can recognize what is the pattern. And if you resolve that as an issue, AI can continue to prompt that, okay, if this was the challenge, how do we go and resolve that? And we continue to work on that particular problem until it is resolved. Okay. And that might be an advantage that can come with AI, but the issue with the legacy data or issue with the legacy system needs to be resolved. And that is what is the mistake that we should not continue to do in the future also. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what AI we put, okay, or artificial
Correct.
intelligence we put, it is not going to solve the issue. With Gen AI, yeah, we can find ways in responding to the RFQs better, okay, or looking at RFPs better and having a good proposal. But if we are not able to address the basic challenges of the data and the broken systems, we may continue to have similar challenges going forward as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And because most of the systems earlier were primarily used as system of records. Those systems, these systems are still being used as system of records. But AI may add a system of action on top of these, systems
Correct.
which have been there.
And one thing that we need to keep in mind, which is what I mentioned when I spoke earlier, to the point, that with AI, if our systems are not going to be built for change, then it is going to be a problem. Then there is no real advantage that we are getting from
Yeah.
AI. Okay, because the marketing plan will continue to change, sales plan will change, production plan will change. There will be many things that will be unforeseen. You are ordering it from hundreds of your other vendors and ancillary units, and they can also go wrong. Okay. if we are not built for change, if our systems are not built for change, if artificial intelligence is not enabling us to be ready for that change, then that would mean that we will continue to repeat the patterns that we have been living for many, many years.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me pick this question that has come from Vijay. How does AI help procurement through projection of demand across geographies, production capacities across geopolitical happening, constant changes in tariff, trade agreements, alternate drop in availability, future pricing, best freight arrangements, etc. So his focus is a chemical universe.
Hmm.
So
Uh,
any,
or do you want
yeah.
to respond to that, and then I can come on that?
No, I think DK, you should take this question.
Okay. So, I talked about one way by which artificial intelligence can help is building the system that can change the behavior, keeping in mind what is changing on the floor. Now, I'll give one example. We are working for a logistic company, and one of the biggest challenge was the last minute change in the orders. So that was the biggest challenge that they used to have. And I'll keep it brief. We turned it around and we said that can that be a statement of differentiation? That means that you build your systems keeping in mind that the last minute change will come, and your systems are able to handle it in a much, much better way. And you collaborate with your other partners very well in order to get the capacity that is required for the third party logistics. After they implemented it, it became actually a statement of differentiation rather than a challenge. Similar part that we need to play with every single system, not only the procurement, whether it is supply chain or whether it is procurement or it is inventory management or production planning and control, whatever it is, we need to really look at whether we are trying to solve the challenge that we have been facing for a long time, and artificial intelligence can play a big role in that. So one part is really looking at building the system for change. Second is, for example, really bringing in all the systems that are coming to the play. For example, Shiva talked about the spend analytics. There are systems now who can help deliver better spend management.
Yeah.
SAP's Ariba is there, which essentially helps you collaborate with your partners and with your vendor ecosystem. Okay. Now, do we, use that very, very effectively or not? And now even those systems are also enabling the artificial intelligence within that. That how can we continue to look at the pattern and continue to improve upon that? But if you look at the entire piece, there is a one element that I'll put a finger on, that do you have the visibility of what you already have? If you do not have the visibility, then that would mean that we are not having a firm base based on which we are looking for a transformation. If the visibility of your material, if the visibility of your bill of material, visibility of your process or business systems is not there, then that can become a challenge. The first layer is always that how do we manage the visibility very, very effectively? And second piece that I will talk about is the standardization, that every single system in the supply chain or in the manufacturing sector has to be driven by the standardization that we can bring in, because it has to repeat every day. And if it has to repeat every day, the only thing that can repeat is the standardization. So can we standardize our process? Can we standardize our systems? And can we standardize our ways of working, our service providers, our vendor ecosystem? The moment we continue to standardize, that would mean that we are able to optimize that to the best possible extent. I think those are some of the pieces. I know in this short call, we can only talk about and touch upon those systems, but there are approaches to really look at the visibility, look at the standardization so that we can scale in the future. There are approaches that are required in order for the organization to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, when you talked about the standardization, I just wondering how this standardization would apply to market forces, say tariff, changing tariff, disruption of supply chain. How would all can so of course the AI system has to be prepared with certain scenarios so that it can provide that kind of a analytics and decision intelligence when you have a very disruptive market forces working behind uh, your
Correct.
organization.
And the reason I talked about the standardization and also AI for change, two in the same answer is that till date, all the ERPs or the processes, they were all focused on the standardization. And it is required. It is not that it is not required. But artificial intelligence is brought up in order to really look at change that sits on top of the standardization. Because the processes that are standard are very good for ERP, but the process need to be simultaneous and also predictive in nature going forward when we are talking about artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence will look at how it behaves and decides based on the change that is coming on the fly. So both have to
Yeah,
coexist, because if standardization has not happened, artificial intelligence will again fail because your data is not on a firm
correct.
ground based on which it
Yeah,
has to talk about.
absolutely. So yeah, if scenarios have been built, then scenarios have to be actually supported by your past data too. Otherwise, these scenarios may hallucinate or give you some different context altogether as compared to your entire company state. Okay, so let's go
I
deeper. In fact,
I
we have
wanted to
got
add
one more
here
question.
one point, Vish.
Sure, sure, Shiva.
So actually, the most important, if AI has to thrive, it has to thrive on the base created by the processes. I was mentioning earlier, there are 10 masters, which is extremely important to procurement process to work smoothly. The first one is a vendor master. The second one is the item master. And third one is bill of material. And fourth one is the contracts, what we are signing with our vendors and their KPIs management. And the fifth one is the price and the should be cost benchmark prices of the item which you are going to buy. And the sixth one is the demand. The DK spoke quite a lot about changing demand. What is it, a weekly and monthly and a yearly, quarterly demand of a particular product, particular lines? What is the lead time of procuring those items? What is the approval and delegation matrix of the procurement process? And what is the cost structure, tax structures of the particular product which you are going to buy? And what is the supplier performance criteria, KPIs, how they are getting governed? All these 10s are extremely important. And over and above that, the dynamic, the market is quite dynamic. The operations are quite unpredictable. There will be changes on a fly, on an everyday basis, or a weekly basis. But those changes, according to me, and probably DK has to watch for that. And AI can able to handle it very efficiently when these masters are in place.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, DK.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that even the master data management is not implemented in a lot of organizations. And if that is not there, as I said, that the whole system is not standing on a firm ground.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Correct. So there's a similar question that has come from Nishan, but I'll pick that question after the question that I have for Shiva and DK. So let's go a little deeper in the procurement life cycle, where execution either holds or falls apart. And there's a question to Shiva. So in your previous organizations, say Indus Towers or Pace Digitech, you were running P&Ls of hundreds of crores, where procurement decisions had direct operational consequences. And across the procure to pay life cycle, pricing, negotiation, execution, and supplier performance, which stage breaks most consistently, and why does it keep breaking despite years of investment?
Very wonderful question, actually. It's very context specific question, I wish, actually. Let me deep dive into my experience in Indus Towers first, and then get into Pace Digitech. See, Indus Towers is a procure-to-pay cycle is completely matured and very stable. Demand planning is very strong and very predictable. Sourcing and negotiation is structured. It's completely benchmark driven. And execution is completely SLA driven. So the failures in Indus Towers, because of Indus Towers, is quite less. But even then, the failure happens. Typically, failures in the very structured environment is because of the ecosystem failures. The ecosystem failures typically classified into two cases. One is about failure because of our suppliers. Second one is failure because of the logistics issues. And the third one, if I have to add, because of the dynamic situations, what is going to happen in your environment. Right now, we are under tremendous disruption because of the Middle East war. So if I have to say that, in Indus Towers is completely structured. So the failures are periodically external driven, not from the internal driven. Well, let me take example of the organizations which are in a scale-up environment. There are startup organizations, they are not matured, processes are not matured. The most important failure almost happens because of the procurement under pressure. That is the first point. Second one is, if the organization does not implement it in ERP systems, then all the masters which I have spoken are not aligned properly. So when these are not aligned properly, then accident can happen from any of the corner. On top of that, we have even though we have ERP systems implemented, many of our data are resides in our Excel sheets, in our emails. So that also adds to the problem. So to sum it up, if organizations are matured, processes are well established, the masters are established, and they are constantly updated, the failures are typically ecosystem dependent. In the organizations which are actually on a rapid expansion phase, they are continuously building their organizations. Production setups are getting increased day by day. New products are getting introduced. In such kind of environment, if the masters are not seamlessly updated and integrated, the failure can happen from any of the corner. The most important failure happens a procurement under pressure. Yeah, Vish.
Okay. So I'll combine my question with what Nishant has shared. So please share an example of AI agents autonomously analyze trade-offs, run sourcing events, generate options continuously, covering PR to PO and vendor comparison, etc. And there's a second question, or I think it's a comment to when we are talking about prediction. So prediction of what to buy, when, and in what batch sizes. So DK, maybe we can start with you because I actually have a similar question to you in terms of
I think
how
there
technology or AI can.
Sorry, I interrupted, Vish.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Now, I was just saying that, yes, there are numerous AI agents being built. But just because it is an AI agent, my advice is that that doesn't mean that it is going to solve your problem. Okay. Be very careful from that perspective. Having said that, yeah, there are so many AI agents being built. But yes, these are all the patterns on which one should think of building AI agents that can work autonomously and also decide what is required to be done. There are two ways the way agents are being written. But most people think that we will give that data to the AI agent and it will give us some result. Okay, and then we'll work on that. No, well, that problem was solved by technology many years back. Nishant's second question on, let's say that talking about predictive analytics or how can we predict something, what to buy, when to buy, how much to buy, okay? That problem has been solved by predictive analytics many years back. So if somebody says that now I need to have AI agent on top of that, well, it is a analytics issue, okay? But the piece that we need to look at with AI agent is that are we letting the AI agent take a decision? Okay, that is where the gap in understanding is that I'm seeing in the industry, that we are not asking it to process some data and give some report in return. But the ability of AI agent should be that they look at the data, they look at these are the 10 ways a problem can be solved, and this is the best possible solution or best possible path that we can take and solve the problem and take a decision. For example, if a client comes and says that I need a quote for these 3 items, would you let the AI agent send the quote, the best possible quote, to that client or not? Now, there is a possibility that the first time or the second time or the 10th time, you will validate whether the quote is correct or not. But once you got the confidence, you will make it independent that from now onwards, I don't need to look at that quote. So far, this is the guardrail. So far, it is validating this guardrail. It will be able to answer that call from the client on its own. I think that is where the AI agents come into the play autonomously. Nishant has mentioned that also, that it is taking the decision autonomously. So yes, whether it is with the trade-off or sourcing events, okay, all that can be done by using the AI agent. But what we need to look at is what is the path that we will take in order to mature the AI agent in taking that autonomous decision and reach that stage. That path need to be defined very well. Now, this is not the same old process. Okay, this is the path that we need to decide for the AI agent specifically so that we are able to really convert that part of the process into the decision making.
Absolutely. So I have a similar question that has come from Nishant Kanda. But before that, Shiva, do you have any point to make here to the question from Nishant Burnwal?
What Nishant is asked, can the AI can do the autonomous activity? So it's not a problem at all to structure the AI agent to act as per whatever processes organization has set up. But the most important is, have you set up the processes for? Let me take an example. So if you don't have, imagine I'm trying to buy a bearing from the market. So specification has to be tightly structured, and the cost benchmarks has to be tightly structured, and the supplier environment has to be selected. Imagine there are 15 suppliers who can supply the bearing. The specifications are given and benchmarks are given, and AI can do a nice job in evaluating all the proposals from these 15 suppliers who wants to supply the bearing, and they can compare the prices and then select the best supplier basis the cost benchmarks which you have given into the process, and can directly place the order to that supplier if your ERP is integrated with the supplier environment. That can automatically happen. That's not an issue at all. Let me give you one example. In long time back, when I was in TCS, we transferred procure to pay entire process from Europe to Mumbai. So this is somewhere around 2007. In 2007 itself, that it was a largest chemical manufacturing company in the world. To my surprise, when any supplier submits the invoice is automatically processed basis the PO value as well as the invoice value. The PO value and invoice value, the difference is between plus or minus 5%. The payment happens automatically. So that kind of automation happened in 20 years back itself. So with the current environment, which are in AI and AI agents, these automation can be done easily, can be done. But provided the biggest important point is, have you all the masters up to date? That is the most important point which you should keep in mind. Yeah, Vish.
Thank you, Shiva. Yeah, that's a very good point. So yeah, masters are critical. So I'll come to that question. There's another question that is that I talked about from Nishant, and this basically from small sector suppliers face a double squeeze. They are not yet tech savvy, while their enterprise clients race ahead with AI driven procurement. So, and even when they try to catch up, their historical data is often too messy to train reliable models. So, do small players get left behind, or is there a real pathway for them to win alongside the enterprises they serve? I think that's a good question because
Yeah.
while you are a supplier to a larger enterprises, you need to also sync with your system should also sync with the enterprise systems as well. And if the enterprise is keeping those masters that you guys talked about, so how a small organization can keep up to that kind of expectations from larger enterprises, and then at the same time how they can compete against the larger enterprises or larger sellers who are tech savvy.
Yeah. So, Vish, I don't know, of course, very specific to the company that, for example, Nishant is talking about, or I'm not very close to many of the manufacturing companies, except that we provide them services. Uh, uh, but but my view is that this is also an opportunity. Yes, there is a challenge. There is, I mean, it goes without saying, because a lot of smaller companies do not have ERP, do not have the structured data, do not have the systems in place or processes in place. So there is a challenge. But it also is an opportunity because it is providing you a level playing field. Okay, because nobody is great at AI right now. I know that larger companies have a deep pocket to spend money on that, but that is not a sure shot ticket to getting successful with artificial intelligence. Okay, whereas if you look at smaller companies, they can be far more nimble, and they can be far more effective in adopting and leapfrogging to something very, very quick in the future. I'll give one simple example. Look at e-commerce companies. There are many companies who thought that there is no point getting after e-commerce, and they were wiped out during the COVID time. Okay, whereas the smaller companies actually grew much, much faster because they had put that supply chain in place. Second example that is there in front of our eyes, Amazon said that this 10-minute delivery we are not going to work on because this is not the model that works very well. Who needs iPhone in 10 minutes? But well, Blinkit worked on that, and it gave big challenge to Amazon.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
now Blinkit was a much smaller company, but it has given a challenge and has leapfrogged into future where they are now leading in providing the services within 10 minutes. Okay, now smaller companies can think that we do not have all this, or they can leapfrog because here is the level playing field given to everyone, that now nobody is better than anybody else. Can we take a lead here and show some differentiation? I think that's the only motivation that I can provide to the smaller companies. But of course, there are real issues on the real ground that people will have to solve. But somewhere, I think we should take that leap of faith and say that no, we will work very differently in the future, and will actually take a lead when we have this level playing field given to us.
Absolutely. Shiva, any point from your end?
And I wish I wanted to address in a two perspective. First one is, if you are a small player and you want to supply to the organized sector and big players, there is no issue at all. So if you are a small player and you wanted to set right your production systems and processes, procurement processes in an efficient way, so that you could manufacture a product at a competitive prices, then we spoke about quite a lot on that subject. Now let me address now first issue what Nishant Kanda wants to answer for that. See, any organization, any industry, the procurement processes are quite different. So procurement processes for procuring raw materials quite different. Procurement processes for procuring the in-process consumables are different. Procurement processes for buying the spares are different, and procurement processes for buying the commodities are different. Imagine a small sector, a small SME organization wants to supply for a big organization in a raw material segment. The most important is, as a small company, are you part of their approved listed suppliers? That is extremely important. The second important point is, have you given your prices to them in proper fashion, aligned with their AI or ERP systems? If that is done, then ERP systems and AI system will definitely pick up your efficient quote and place it before the purchasing manager. So let me conclude by saying that the answer to the Mr. Kanda's question is in two parts. You don't need any AI to sell your product to the any of the organization. Second one is, if you wanted to procure and manufacture a product in a most efficient way, then you need a structured procure to pay process, a ERP, on top of that AI to make you manufacture product at a good quality and efficient cost. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shiva. Nishant, I hope you got your answer. But let me move to other question that I have, and which is in terms of, like, we talked about certain certain areas which actually fracture the which fail the system, especially when you're talking about data, when you're talking about the master lists which have not been prepared in a way that is required. The third area that could be is the the owner of such processes, either in terms of the CPO, Chief Commercial Officer, or CTO. So, if we look at these three, these three areas that can lead to failures. So, which of these three is the hardest to fix from the operator's chair, Shiva?
No, I actually see I would actually go one level deeper. No, behind all three blockers, what you mentioned, the real issue is actually not having the reliable digital backbone. So, in fact, for last 40 minutes, we are repeatedly addressing the same point. So, if you don't have existing ERP, then the ERP, you cannot segregate the various aspects of procurement in a single level. For example, you don't have inventory visibility, you don't have demand visibility, you don't have the price standards, you don't have approved suppliers. No, even suppliers are not there, you're not updated them, you don't have the supplier performance masters. So here the most important place where it can break is lack of ERP system.
Okay.
The second one is, if ERP systems are there, but see, data is quite dynamic. If all these masters are not updated on a periodic level, then the masters are available, data is updated, then there is no use of these masters. That is the second important point. See, the another important point, what we typically say about shadow data which is available in Excel sheets, emails, in our scribble pads. No, that is not going to serve anything when if it is not get into the ERP systems.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
the three important points are fragmented data, Okay,
Yeah.
no single no truth of any data. So the next important point is the whatever we is speaking about, the if AI has to thrive, then this data is extremely important.
Okay.
So the
So
ERP adoption, clean masters, integration of the information which is available in Excels as well as emails, these three are very, very important.
yeah. Okay. And DK, from your perspective, if we look at these, these areas that Shiva talked about, and if I'll also, I also mentioned about who is the single owner between CPO, CFO, and CTO. And if we look at the scenario when, especially the way AI has been rolled out, there's been a huge gap from pilot to production. So, which one kills the most AI initiatives before they prove their value out of the various areas that we talked about?
Yeah. So, Vish, I think I answered it before also, but I'll try to answer it a little differently as to what is that which will not let AI succeed. I would say that the first point is if I have to look at on the left side, it is the ownership. Okay. That means that if there is no owner for the process or the system or the applications, or even if you are building up an AI agent, if there is no ownership, it will not happen. It does not matter how good the AI agent has been built or how good has been the digital system. If there is no ownership of what gets delivered, then it will not succeed. So that ownership is one thing. The right side of that probably is how do we measure it, the KPIs or the matrices. Okay, how do we really measure it? So these are the two things that go hand in hand in order to really look at, are we getting closer to the success or not? Because you are not going to be successful in the first go. Slowly you continue to improve and move towards or inch towards the success. Okay, so these are the two things that are very, very important. But the core point which I said before also is, which is something which is at the center of these two, is the visibility. If you do not have the visibility, okay, then it becomes a challenge. And now visibility needs to be defined for the organization. What is the visibility that we are talking about? Okay, Shiva talked about the master data. That is one part of the visibility. Okay, the business systems, second part of the visibility. Many of the companies don't even know what is the process that they are following. You ask them what is the business process you follow, and they will tell you that I am using SAP or I'm using XYZ system, and this is how we do it. Well, that is how it is implemented. Is that the business process that you are supposed to follow? How many of
Okay.
the exceptions that are there as part of the business process? Now, if that visibility is not there, then there is a challenge. What is the data? What is the quality of the data? Where the data is broken? What kind of reports are there? Can you act on those reports? That visibility we are talking about. Okay, we talked about the spend. Where do we spend the money? On what material we spend the money? Okay, is there a money that is being overspent on certain items that are being ordered at the last minute? Okay, so is there spend analytics that is there? That visibility. So I believe that visibility, while it looks very simple, but that is the core point around which your ownership works, around which your goals and KPIs work, and that need to be. And of course, standardization cannot happen unless until visibility is there.
Yeah.
That is something that need to be figured out by every company, that how do we really get the visibility on what we have. It is like going into a mall and saying that I want to go to this particular shop, but you don't know where you're standing in front of the map, but you don't know where it is. It is, that map is not going to help. Okay, so visibility is all about looking at that map, knowing where you stand, knowing where you have to go, and then only it starts making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with these systems that we have, of course, the you can certainly solve the visibility issue if you have put the governance, the document. I mean, the way the data should be structured. So if you have set the right foundation, then these can be achieved. So let
Correct. And
me.
we have seen it so many times in the companies that when something goes wrong, there are people who are pointing fingers at each other rather than really knowing very well where the real issue is, who is the owner of that process. Okay.
Yeah.
If you define that ownership in the beginning itself, the process wise, the activity wise, if you define the ownership and if that visibility is there, it becomes much easier. And even owner is feeling compelled to take care of that well in advance rather than getting into an issue where something is not delivered and later on the blame comes on that function.
Absolutely. So let me move a little bit to from an Indian perspective. So India has real structural advantages in terms of GSC data trails, government mandated supplier digitization, UPI scale infrastructure, and PwC India estimated recently that AI could contribute 135 to 150 billion dollars to India's manufacturing MSMEs by 2035. So that opportunity is huge. But then at the same time, if you look at the report from NESCOM is saying that Indian firms' AI maturity is at a middle level. So what does India need to do differently to capture that window that PwC has talked about?
Can I take that now, Vish?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So there is no doubt that actually, we are in a very advantageous situation. A country India is concerned. We are completely GST linked transactions. We are actually rapidly digitizing our supplier database, and we have UPI scale digital infrastructure. There is absolutely no doubt about it. What is the three things which are extremely important? One is about re-engineering our procure to pay process, which we have been speaking entire for last 58 minutes. Now PR to PO to GRN, it is completely digitized or not. Second, most important is the building and maintaining the core procurement processes. We have been harping upon the same thing almost for last 50 minutes on that. And the third important is the spend visibility of our organization. Once these three are there, actually, then whatever the digitization the country has now done, so the full advantage cannot be taken if these things are not there. Yeah, Vish.
Thank you. DK, your input?
Yeah. No, I think the way, of course, India can take a lot of advantage, and there are many, organizations who have outsourced that as a function to India, and India is doing quite well on that front. But we need to really look at what is that we do very differently, considering that now artificial intelligence is coming into the play. And do we need to be really looking at only a service play here, or we need to really get into any platforms or product kind of space as well? But before we get into the product and platform space, I think one thing that we need to clearly look at is that so many companies, so many of the companies, even when I talk today, they do not have a digital backbone. The real digital backbone. They may have certain systems here and there, but it is still not one system that can provide what is required in order to make the organization function very well. And that is a challenge that if digital backbone is not there, we can continue to dream about implementing AI agents and all that, but it will not happen. Fortunately or unfortunately, what has happened with Gen AI is that people think that we will ask a question and an answer will appear. Okay. But when it comes to the business, when it comes to the structured data, when it comes to taking the decision, it is not that simple. You can't go and just ask a question to ChatGPT or Claude that how am I going to decide on the production plan for this month? No, you are not going to get that way. Okay. First of all, you need to have a digital backbone. You need to have the data in place. Only then even an AI agent can work on top of that. So no shortcuts that are going to work. I think there is going to be hard work in implementing and putting the digital backbone in place for India to take the real advantage, so that we are not just working on the system that are being made available to us by our client, but we are becoming a truly service provider which has its own platform and can automate automation for anyone, or can automate the procurement for anyone. Okay, I think that's the dream that we need to have going forward at India level, to take the real advantage of the geographical dividend that we have in our place.
Absolutely. And in fact, now that cost of digitization is not that high as compared to what it used to be earlier. So, of course, if there's more, uh, you know, when you have a lot of capex which has been involved as part of digitization, then that's a different issue altogether. But in the current scenario, with certain tools, certain AI agents, you can build a digitization layer at a very cost effective manner, which was not a case earlier. So I think that's going to be an advantage for the small and mid-sized enterprises for sure.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. Okay, I agree that now there are more tools available. Okay,
Yeah.
to do the faster development of digital systems. Okay,
Mm.
so that can happen, but we have to understand that the bottleneck is shifted from coding
Mm.
to validation, for example, or for
Mm.
review. Okay, that bottleneck is shifting. So it is not as if that the bottleneck has completely disappeared. Okay, I
Mm.
know that government can make a road that you can reach to Dehradun in 1.5 hours, but well, if you had to go
Yeah.
to Haridwar, or sorry, if you had to go to Mansouri, you will stuck at Dehradun itself. This is the latest news that you would have seen 2 days back. The bottleneck is shifted. Okay, so that is the same thing in the organizations as well, that the bottleneck continues to shift, and we need to continue to be aware of that and continue to be mindful and plan for that. So yes,
Yes,
cost has
absolutely.
reduced for coding, okay, or development, but cost has increased for the later validation.
Mm.
So
Correct. Yes.
let
So
me give
while
my exam.
yeah,
Wish,
yeah, Shiva,
sorry, I
go
was
ahead.
interrupting. So let me give my example, which I have recently implemented ERP system for multi-country organization, and to my surprise, the ERP system implementation cost is really the fraction of cost what I used to think. In fact, the cost is yearly cost is somewhere around a salary of a employee who's having 5 years experience. So that's the cost. The cost has come down drastically down actually for ERP
Mm.
implementation. On top of that, the adding AI layer, agentic layer is of same order actually, frankly speaking.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vish.
Thanks, Shiva. So while of course the cost has come down, and you gave a real example, DK's point is also valid. But yes, the bottleneck stages might be different, but we are still moving a little. We are moving ahead. We are not moving backward. So there might be later on there might be more intelligence that may come in, but yes, at that in those scenarios as well, when we are talking about AGI and other scenarios, so the bottlenecks would be there for sure. But yes, we are moving forward, we are not moving backward. So just so we have reached to the top of the hour, so I'll just quickly conclude this session, and I'm going to share 5 checkpoints for everyone when we are talking about deploying or rewiring enterprise procurement through AI. So fix the first mile before you buy the platform, and that's what we have been that's has been talked about from demand origination and specification perspective. Second checkpoint is own your data before you name an AI use case. So the bottleneck is almost never the tool. It is always the data, the process, and the operating model underneath it. So that is what has been highlighted by Shiva and DK. Third step is name one accountable owner for procurement outcomes. So AI does not resolve ownership and ambiguity; it amplifies it. So one owner, one set of metrics, and non-negotiable. Fourth checkpoint is measure time to production, not time to pilot. So set a hard 90-day gate. If a pilot cannot show a clear path to deployment, stop it and redirect that budget. Fifth point is in terms of AI compatible suppliers are a strategic asset. So build them now, and that is primarily for the buyers. So if you are a buyer, score for supplier AI compatibility, AI readable, structured data, digital invoicing, performance transparency. So if you are a supplier, AI is not optional in 2026. So with that, 5 checkpoints, we are going to sign off. I'd like to thank Shiva and Dharmender for sharing their candid insights. They're two people who have earned the right to say what they said today. And thanks to all the live audience who made the session interactive. Uh, this session is part of the 2020X Vision series. So where we bring practitioners and advisors together to work through the real problem without the noise. Our next session is on 20th May, 21st May, sorry, as a where we are going to ask a harder question, which is everything is compliant. Is that enough for the future of deals? So we are moving from L1-driven sourcing to intelligent deal making, where value, risk, and outcomes carry as much weight as price. So join us live at 6:30 p.m. on 21st May. We'll be sharing the link in the comments. And if today's conversation was useful, follow the GrowthSutra page, share this session with someone in your organization who needs to hear it, and connect with Shiva, DK, me directly on LinkedIn. So their profiles are in the they have been there. Their profiles have been there on the LinkedIn event page. So you can reach out to any one of us. And I'm going to see you in the next one. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Shiva, and thank you, DK.
Thank you so much, DK.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Vish.
you.
Thank you, everyone.